I never thought my grandma would ask me to do something like this. She's always been the sweetest lady, the kind who bakes cookies, knits sweaters, and tells the best bedtime stories. But that day, she had a different look in her eyes, mischievous, determined. And what she asked me to do with our dog? I still can't believe it actually happened. It started like any other weekend visit to her house. I walked in, and there she was, sitting in her favorite chair, petting our golden retriever, Buddy. He wagged his tail like crazy when he saw me, his big brown eyes full of excitement. Grandma smiled at me, but I could tell she was up to something. She had that little smirk, the one she used when she had a trick up her sleeve. I need your help with something, she said, her voice calm but firm. And we're going to record it. I raised an eyebrow. Record what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she got up, walked over to the counter, and picked up her old video camera. The thing was ancient, probably older than me, but it still worked. She handed it to me and pointed toward Buddy, who was now sitting perfectly still, as if he knew something was about to happen. We're making a video, she said, and Buddy is the star. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Buddy. He's the best dog in the world. But the way Grandma was acting, it made me a little nervous. She had that sparkle in her eye, like she was about to pull off the greatest prank of all time. What kind of video? I asked, hesitating. She chuckled, patted Buddy on the head, and said, You'll see. At this point, my mind was racing. Was she about to make Buddy do some kind of crazy trick? Was this going to be one of those viral pet challenge videos? Or was it something completely unexpected? I glanced down at the camera in my hands, then back at my grandma, who was now whispering something to Buddy. He tilted his head, as if listening carefully, and then, out of nowhere, he jumped up and ran toward the backyard. Come on, Grandma said, motioning for me to follow. We need to get this on camera. I had no idea what I was about to witness, but I knew one thing. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to be unforgettable. And that's when I pressed record. Buddy sprinted into the backyard, his tail wagging like crazy, but I still had no clue what was going on. Grandma was right behind him, moving surprisingly fast for her age. I tightened my grip on the camera, trying to keep up, my heart pounding with curiosity. The way she was acting, it was almost like she had planned this moment for a long time. As soon as we stepped outside, I noticed something strange. A small table was set up near the garden, covered with a checkered cloth. On top of it, there were a few random objects, a red bandana, a pair of sunglasses, and, weirdly enough, a tiny hat. Buddy ran straight to the table and sat down, looking at Grandma like he was waiting for instructions. I turned to her, confused. Okay, what is this? She just grinned. Patience, you'll see. Then she pulled out a treat from her pocket, and Buddy's ears perked up. He was focused now, completely locked in. Grandma gave him a signal, and suddenly he lifted his paw and placed it on the table, like he was about to do something serious. I could feel the suspense building. Was he about to perform some kind of secret trick? Was this some long-lost talent that Grandma had been training him for in secret? I had never seen him act like this before. So calm, so ready. I kept the camera rolling as Grandma tied the red bandana around Buddy's neck, then placed the tiny hat on his head. He didn't move a muscle. It was almost like he knew exactly what was going on, like he had been waiting for this moment just as much as Grandma had. All right, she whispered. It's time. Time for what? I wanted to ask, but before I could say anything, she stepped back and gave me a knowing look. That's when I realized she wasn't just making some random video. This wasn't just a cute little dog trick. There was a reason behind all of this. And whatever it Buddy sat there, completely still, dressed like a tiny old-school movie star. The bandana, the hat, even the sunglasses, he wore them like he had done this 100 times before. But that was the thing, he hadn't. At least, not that I knew of. And Grandma? She was standing there with the kind of excitement in her eyes that made me nervous. I kept the camera steady, waiting. Then, finally, she spoke. All right, Buddy, showtime. The second she said it, Buddy did something I never expected. He lifted his paw, placed it on his nose, and then He started moving, almost like he was acting. Not just regular dog tricks, but full-on performance mode. He tipped his head dramatically, then used his paw to wipe his forehead, like he was pretending to be exhausted. I stared. What? What is happening right now? Grandma chuckled but didn't take her eyes off Buddy. He remembers. Remembers? My heart raced. Remembers what? This wasn't just a cute little talent show. This was something deeper. Something personal. Buddy wasn't just doing random tricks. He was reacting to something, responding like he had been trained. But by who? And for what? I tried to piece it together. Grandma's secrecy, the old camera, the way Buddy seemed to know exactly what to do. It felt like I had stepped into a mystery that had been unfolding long before I even realized it existed. And then Grandma said something that sent chills down my spine. This isn't the first time we've filmed this. I gripped the camera tighter, my mind spinning. If this had happened before, what else had I missed? I had a feeling it was going to change everything. I felt a chill run down my spine. Grandma's words echoed in my head. This isn't the first time we've filmed this. I glanced down at Buddy, who was still performing, moving in ways that seemed too precise, too rehearsed. Every tilt of his head, every paw movement. It wasn't random. It was like he was following a script. But whose script? And why hadn't I ever seen this before? I turned to Grandma, my voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean? When did this happen before? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the old shed at the back of the yard. It had been there forever, filled with forgotten things, dusty furniture, old photo albums, boxes no one ever opened. But now she was unlocking it like it held something important. Buddy followed, still wagging his tail, as if he knew exactly what was coming next. I hesitated before stepping inside, but the second I did, I saw it. Stacks of old videotapes, neatly labeled, dozens of them, and all with the same name. Buddy. I felt my breath catch. I picked one up, my hands shaking slightly. You've been filming him for years? Grandma nodded, her face unreadable. Not just filming, training. My heart pounded. Training him for what? She sighed, finally meeting my eyes. For this moment. I stared at her, then back at Buddy, who still looked so calm, so ready, like he had been waiting for me to figure it out. But I still didn't know what this was. And something told me that once I found out, there would be no going back. I swallowed hard, staring at the tapes in my hands. They were old, some of the labels faded, but the name Buddy was clear on every single one. My mind raced. Grandma had been recording him for years, training him. But for what? And why keep it a secret from me? Buddy sat beside me, his tail still thumping against the dusty wooden floor, like he knew something I didn't, like he was waiting for me to catch up. I turned to Grandma, my voice unsteady. What moment? What are you talking about? She let out a small sigh, running her fingers over one of the tapes. It's time you see for yourself. She reached over, pulled out an old VCR from the shelf, and plugged it into the tiny TV in the corner of the shed. The screen flickered with static before an image appeared. It was Buddy, but not as he was now. He looked younger, smaller, and standing beside him was me. I blinked. Wait, is that me? Grandma nodded. You were just a kid. You don't remember, do you? I stared at the screen, trying to piece it together. In the video, I was laughing, guiding Buddy through a series of tricks. He was doing the same movements he had done earlier, the same precise gestures. It wasn't just training. It was a routine, one we had done before. My chest tightened. Why don't I remember this? Grandma hesitated. Then, in the softest voice, she said, Because I didn't want you to. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She turned to me, her expression unreadable. Something happened after this video. The screen flickered again. Then, suddenly, the image cut to black. A cold silence filled the shed. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. I turned back to Grandma, my voice barely above a whisper. "What happened?" She didn't answer. But the look in her eyes told me one thing. Whatever it was, I wasn't ready for it. Grandma's silence was louder than any answer she could have given me. My hands felt clammy as I stared at the dark screen, my own reflection barely visible in the static. Buddy sat still, watching us both, his tail no longer wagging. He was waiting, just like I was. Finally, Grandma let out a slow breath. "That was the last time you and Buddy ever did that routine together." My chest tightened. "Why?" She hesitated, then pressed play again. The screen stayed black for a moment. Then suddenly the video returned. But this time something was different. The younger version of me was no longer smiling. Buddy was sitting still, staring at me, just like he was now. And then, in the video, I turned to look at the camera. My stomach twisted, my face in the video. There was something wrong with it. My expression was blank, my eyes distant, like I wasn't fully there. And then, younger me whispered something. I leaned in, my breath caught in my throat, trying to hear what I had said. And then, my own voice from years ago spoke through the crackly speakers. "He remembers what happened." A shiver ran down my spine. I turned to Grandma. "What does that mean?" She looked down at Buddy, then back at me. "Something scared you that day. You wouldn't talk about it. You refused to finish the routine. You cried for hours, but you wouldn't say why." I tried to remember, but it was like my mind had a locked door, refusing to open. "And Buddy?" Grandma swallowed hard. "Buddy changed too. After that day, he never did those tricks again, until now." I looked at Buddy. He was staring at me with those same deep brown eyes, as if he had been waiting for me to remember. And then, just as I opened my mouth to say something, the screen glitched. For a split second, an image flashed, a blurry figure standing in the background of the old footage, just behind me and Buddy, someone I had never noticed before. And then the tape cut to static. I froze.